What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go! Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. This is 40 days, 40 nights. We are now on day 2 of this Odyssey, where I will be doing 2 live shows a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, talking all things sports. And this is a great time to do this because we're talking NFL playoffs. We had the wild card round wrap up last night, so we'll talk about the Texans and their dominant defensive performance over the Pittsburgh Steelers and a win on the road, what it means for the Texans moving forward in their matchups, which you guys see a little bit of a preview of as I have the graphic up of the matchups coming up next week, plus also the future of Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin, something we talked about a great deal yesterday. Now that they have been eliminated, what comes next for the future Hall of Fame QB and future Hall of Fame head coach. So we'll talk plenty about what's going on with that. We'll also talk about some stuff happening outside of the it's on the sports world, but the conversation actually debated whether or not I want to talk about it. But this Lynn Smith, Liam Cohen situation and the hysteria that has surrounded this conversation because of the exchange that happened after the Jaguars lost to the Bills on Sunday. A reporter locally there made some comments trying to cheer up Liam Cohen, and it has sent everyone into a frenzy. Everyone's had an opinion on it. Everyone's had a take on it. It's actually become quite nauseating to me that everyone has a think piece about what I think is something that is not that big a deal, but it's become a big deal. And we don't shy away from big deal topics on this show, so we'll discuss that. We'll also talk about something that I kept saying I wanted to tease, and I promised I'd get to it, and we're going to get to it today. Because like I said, this is a sports mostly show, a sports-centered show, but we'll talk about other interests. Like I said before, I'm big into the Marvel DC news, and there's some big Marvel DC news happening. There were some reports about what's going on with Black Panther, reports about what's going on with the Batman 2. So towards the end of the show, we'll talk plenty about that as well. We are now streaming live on all platforms that I've pitched that we be doing. So we're on YouTube, New Generation Media as well. Where you find me on YouTube. That's where you can get all of our podcasts. That is the creative think tank of your boy EJ, along with my brothers Shamari Stewart and Kendall Stewart. We drop content on there consistently, whether it be content about heroes, content about sports, content about Star Wars. Make sure you hit subscribe on that channel, New Generation Media. Also, be sure to hit us up where we're live on X. You can follow me, EJ_Stewart. You'll find me there. Our X account for New Generation Media is New Generation Pod, so you can find me there. Also, now, because I thought I did it yesterday, but I don't think I did it correctly. It was probably the only major hiccup that I had in terms of a technical issue. But I believe we are now indeed streaming live on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram, ActionEJ. I am live right now. So you can comment in there as well if you have any thoughts on what happened over the course of yesterday's shows. You want to talk about what happened last night. We'll be getting into plenty of these games and plenty of what's going on for the rest of this week. So I'm really excited to do the show, man. This is going to be a really fun one. So let's begin with what happened last night. And like I said before, it was a dominant performance, I thought, by the Houston Texans. Houston Texans, they go into Pittsburgh and dominate the Steelers. They win that game 30-6. It was a game that was actually really close for the majority of it. And I posted on X that it almost seemed as if the Steelers decided, you know what? Well, not the Steelers. The Texans decided their offense was sputtering. They had a quarterback who I thought looked skittish, who looked shook, who looked completely frazzled by the moment. And we'll talk about C.J. Stroud and what I saw from him. But it's like the Texans defense said, oh, this is still a close game, and we're absolutely dominating this other team. Let's just win the game on our own. Let's just find a way. Let's just figure out, you know what? Forget about the offense. Forget about their struggles. Forget about what they're doing. That doesn't really matter. Let's just go out there and kick these guys behind and let's go win this on our own. And that's essentially what they ended up doing in the second half. 2 defensive touchdowns. Again, just an absolute, just the way I have in that lower third, man. They just absolutely smothered the Steelers. And this is essentially what I was kind of alluding to yesterday when I was talking about this matchup and why I thought what I saw over the week and what I saw in the previous week felt like a little bit, felt so premature to me. Was I think that the Steelers felt like they were doing almost victory laps just because they won the division. And I'm sitting here looking at a Houston Texans team that is hungry, that is ferocious, that is tough, and that is physical. And I'm like, man, you guys are talking about, oh, look what we did, and it's great to win this division. And Aaron Rodgers, I played the comments yesterday being like, oh, at least we don't have leaks over here. That's why we're so successful. And I'm like, man, you should be worried about Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, not worried about leaks from last year with the New York Jets. And I was right. I was 100% right. And it's why I leaned the Texans yesterday when I said if I pick a game, I pick the Texans to win this one. Their defense is serious. It is Super Bowl caliber. It is, in my opinion, the best defense left in the tournament by far. I don't think that Denver is the other team that I think defensively say, okay, they're also really good. I think the Texans are a leg up. They're probably the only team in their stratosphere. I think other than everyone else, I'm picking the Texans defense. And what's so impressive about them is they're great at every level. Like, usually you see a great defense, and there's usually some weak link in the defense. We say, okay, we can't do this on them, but we can at least exploit the linebackers, or we can exploit the safeties, or we can exploit, maybe they have a great pass rush, so it means they got to blitz a lot. There's something you can do to find a way to exploit them in some way. There's no way to exploit the Texans defense. I'm sorry. Good luck. I mean, the front four is just ferocious with the pass rush. Again, Hunter and Anderson were monsters yesterday. Hunter particularly was in the backfield, felt like every play. He was just harassing Aaron Rodgers. Will Anderson, also an absolute stud. Go to the linebacking core. Al-Shaair, Tua Toa, those guys are just tackling machines. They do not miss tackles. They're always in the right position. They're athletic, and they hit you hard. Then the secondary, the corners are great. Lassiter, who I got to give a shout out to Dominique Foxworthy. I know Lassiter had a good year, but coming into this week, he was asked on SportsCenter who was the player that he thought was someone to watch that was flying under the radar this week. He actually thought it was Kamari Lassiter, because we all talk about the greatness of Derek Stingley, but because no one wants to throw to Derek Stingley, that means Kamari Lassiter is asked to make a lot of plays, and he's up to the task. That guy, again, is a absolute dog. Physical, tough, will take the ball away. You saw some of the awesome tackles he made last night. And the safeties, man, again, Petrie, I can go on and on. I mean, they're a defense with no flaws. They are a Super Bowl caliber defense, and that is what's going to make the Texans a tough out the rest of the way, purely because good luck moving the ball on them, and good luck being able to protect your quarterback. They don't have to blitz you to get after you. They cover extremely well, and they are hounds once the ball gets the hands of a receiver or running back. I mean, you talk about rallying to the football. No one does it better than the Houston Texans team, and that's what you saw last night. I thought the Steelers, knew early on that they were in a lot of trouble. They had that first drive where they settled for 3 points, which I thought was the right move because they knew the game that they were in, and it was going to be a close game, a low-scoring game. So I didn't hate the move, but it felt like, man, if you drive down the field against this team and you don't score a touchdown, that's a big, big problem, because you just don't know how many opportunities you're going to get to score the ball on them. They don't give up a lot of big plays. The Steelers are not a big play offense, so they're not going to be a team that's trying to stretch you down the field. So when they didn't get that early touchdown, I knew it was going to be a tough road for them, because the Texans were only going to get stronger as the game went on, which is essentially what happened. I mean, their defensive performance literally got, as dominant as it was, got better and better and better with each quarter. So the Steelers they didn't even have an answer. And when you're playing an offense like a defense like that, you can't create explosive plays, and you're so fearful of your quarterback getting hit that all your plays are essentially, 3-yard checkdowns, 4-yard checkdowns, or quick passes. That's just not going to get it done. Again, this team's too fast. They tackle too well. And once they kind of realized plan A was kind of not going to work, they kind of threw up their hands and said, all right, we're just going to have to just ride this out and see if we can survive this game. And they weren't able to do that. Now, what I will say about the Texans, as great as the defensive performance was, C.J. Stroud is a major problem. Not a small problem. Not a, okay, we'll figure it out. I think he's actually a major problem. Last night, I think, was an important game to see that he kind of really shaking off any of the early season pre-concussion concerns that we saw from that Texans offense, where they were struggling to move the ball with consistency. And we could blame a lot of things, offensive line, the running game, but he also was not playing well during that stretch. Came back after the concussion. The offense looked a little better. He played a little better. It was not explosive, I would say, in any way, but they definitely seemed to play better. Not like they did 2 years ago when C.J. Stroud was Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's putting up awesome numbers, but at least, okay, serviceable, where you thought, okay, this was a team that maybe you couldn't completely dismiss coming into the postseason. That is not what we saw from the Texans offense yesterday. I saw a Texans offense that actually had receivers that made some great catches, an offensive line that was protecting CJ pretty well, considering it's TJ Watt and Cam Hayward on the other side. It's not like you're not gonna have a lot of clean pockets against them, and you're on the road. It's a tough environment outside the center, and CJ having issues with the snaps, which half of it seemed like it was on CJ, half of it seemed like it was on the center. I thought the offensive line played well in terms of pass pro, and then you had a running game, which was the thing that nobody expected to actually mention on the show. That I thought that was going to be the reason why the Steelers had a chance to win, was because the Texans don't really have a running game. Woody Marks was running the ball with physicality. Nick Chubb running the ball with physicality. Marks actually went out in the game a little bit earlier and then came back and looked like he was totally fine. And the Texans offensive line bullying the Steelers front in the run game is something I just, of all the things we're going to talk about, is some of the more unpredictable events of this weekend. Up there, I think, with Bryce Young almost stealing the game against the Rams. I think the Texans offensive line and their performance in the run game is right up there as maybe one of the most surprising results from this weekend. Because the Steelers, they're not great at stopping the run, even though they have a lot of names that's been their Achilles heel for the last few years. But because the Texans have been so poor at it and the offensive line has been so maligned, I think a lot of folks still didn't think that really was going to be a way for the Texans to win this game, was that they were going to be able to run the ball with that kind of effectiveness. And they did. So major props to Nick Haley, who I thought called an excellent game. The problem was the quarterback was completely shook. The quarterback was completely not ready for the moment. And I think if you're a Texans fan, you're going to be happy about that win, because it was satisfying to watch that defense pummel Aaron Rodgers into submission, essentially. But I think you got to have concerns about whether or not you're going to waste a championship caliber defense on a quarterback who either is no good or isn't ready. I can't give you the answer of which is which, to be honest. I've been a huge CJ Stroud guy coming into the season, like I said earlier yesterday rather. These days are melding in now that we're doing this program. I said 2 days ago that I felt like the Texans were, for me, my Super Bowl favorite coming out of the AFC. My Super Bowl pick for the year, I had Lions, Texans. Lions, obviously, that pick completely blew up. That was the team I had winning the Super Bowl. They didn't even make the damn playoffs, so thanks for that, Detroit. But I did have the Texans in the Super Bowl. Large part because I thought the defense was awesome, but I also figured that so much of the blame last year, and in terms of why their offense was so bad, went to their now ousted offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick. So I said, okay, everyone kept telling me Bobby Slowick was the issue. He's gone. So hopefully now that you got him out the building, and now you got Nick Haley, who was highly regarded. The Jets were interested in him. All these different teams were interested in him. Everybody wants to get a guy who's part of the McVay tree. And he came in, and the offense looked worse. They took a step back. And he started getting a lot of the blame too. But I'm like, at what point are we going to say it's not the coaching? At what point are we going to say, hey, maybe there's an issue with the personnel, issue with the quarterback? Maybe this offense isn't built to be an explosive offense because they're not a good team on that side of the ball. But again, Nick Haley wasn't the problem last night. He was scheming guys open. I thought, besides the flea flicker, which enough of the flea flickers, man. I know it's some Miami, this is some Miami baggage I'm bringing in from the Fiesta Bowl. But I feel like we've seen a bunch of flea flickers over the weekend that have not worked. Like, everybody just get rid of the flea flickers for a weekend, man. That just throw that play in the garbage. We don't need to see that at this point anymore. But besides the flea flicker, that was a terrible call. I thought Haley called a fine game. Stroud was, every time you see anybody was near him, he's trying to run around. It seemed like anytime he faced any kind of real pressure, he didn't seem to really stand up to it. He was awful. And then the turnovers, man. Again, trying to make plays that were dead where he could just simply, because, you're dropping snaps, just get on the ball, live to fight another down, or the flea flicker, okay, it doesn't look like it's being blocked very well. get down or throw the ball away, let the fighter down. Instead, he's trying to make these late plays against a pass rush that is ferocious, that is someone that can turn you over. And he has these terrible fumbles. The pick he had where, again, he's not looking the right, the reads, he's looking on one way, it doesn't go there, and then he's trying to make something out of nothing. He won't just run. There were so many plays last night where if he simply just takes off, as opposed to trying to make these home run heroic plays, he gets 4 or 5 yards and you live to fight another down. Same thing with this situation. They take away his number one option. He goes to the right, and instead of just taking off, he throws a pick. He throws the ball super late, super behind the guy. I don't know how many passes he missed. He missed Nico Collins wide open for what could have been a touchdown at the end of the first half, which may have put the game out of reach immediately. Because watching this game, it became very clear. The first team to get the 2 scores is probably going to win this game, especially if that second score is a touchdown. That looked very clear as the game was going on. C.J. Stroud, I don't think that, as awesome as that performance was for the Texans, I don't think you could have great confidence today that they're a team that can win a Super Bowl. And I know the conversations in the post game yesterday. I saw SVP, who always does a phenomenal job. I think somehow SVP has kind of become underrated in this field. Like I think his post game shows are excellent after Monday Night Football. And he's talking to Troy, he's talking to Joe Buck, and he's making a case. Hey, like this team looks Super Bowl caliber. They all three seem to be kind of in agreement. I'm like, did you watch that quarterback play? and Troy Aikman said that he feels like the things that C.J. Stroud struggled with, he could fix. I don't think it's gonna be as easy as people think. I mean, Stroud's going up against next week. We'll talk about the matchups next week. He's going up against a Patriot team that also pummeled the quarterback into submission in Justin Herbert, a guy who's, as much as we like to talk about Justin Herbert and talk about how he's quote unquote if man, if you're online, you know what that means. In terms of like he's Mr. Hypothetical, because it's, if Herbert hit this and if Herbert had that, he would be great, right? So they call him the if man, Mr. Hypothetical. But as much as we talk about and have fun with Herbert, Herbert is a better quarterback than C.J. Stroud. So, and the Chargers have some of the similar issues that the Texans have offensively. Run game is inconsistent because of injuries that they had. Offensive line play has been inconsistent in terms of pass pro. And they don't have the most weapons. And the Texans, I think, will probably be without Nico Collins next week because he suffered a concussion that looked ugly. I mean, you talk about all concussions are tough to see, and obviously they're all super serious. But he goes for a catch, and he lands literally directly on his noggin, like directly on his head. And it's rare you see plays where guys can't brace their falls in a way in which they don't just fall on their head. But I guess because he was diving forward for a pass, he had no choice if he was going to try to make the play but to just lay all out. And because of the defense that was on him, I thought Joey Porter, I thought also did a pretty good job last night. He didn't have any way to brace himself, so he just slams his head right onto the cold, grassy field over in Pittsburgh, and that was it. Lights out. You could tell immediately he was gone. He was wobbly. He was having trouble figuring out which way to go in terms of to get off the field. He wanted to go back to the huddle. They're trying to get him into the sidelines. He gets carted off the field. They couldn't even walk him to the locker room. That was ugly. So to me, you got a quarterback who looks shook. Next week, he's going to be going into a game against another great defense with a great secondary and a great pass rush, and he's not going to have his number one receiver, I don't believe. As much as I love the Texans defense, I kind of watched last night and wondered, man, like, is this going to be another scrimmage for Drake May? I feel like that Chargers game was essentially a tune-up game, essentially a scrimmage, because the Chargers gave no resistance offensively. As long as the Patriots scored a touchdown, they were going to win. That's how last night was. Again, I felt like the Steelers scored a touchdown. I don't know if the Texans were going to be able to win that game without getting a short field or making plays, because they had so many. They got their last touchdowns, obviously 2 defensive and 1 on a short field. I don't know if they get another touchdown if they don't get short fields, because C.J. Stroud was not, to me, driving them down the field for points. It was so bizarre last night because the Texans were so great on third down. Like he did make third down completions. That was one of the things that were the highlight for him last night. If you're gonna take anything away, I think if you're Nick Haley and you're D'Amico Ryans, I think he's gonna try to prop up his performance and prop up his confidence. I think you don't show up any tape for any of the other downs. I think you just show him the third down conversions. Say, hey, listen, man, this is how you were on third down. If you do this again next week, we probably will gonna win. And that is probably true. I think that's probably the best way for them to maybe drum up his confidence, I want to try to see if I can pull up the third down numbers officially. But Mike Tomlin said it at halftime, man. He was like, we're not playing good enough on both sides of the ball on third down. They're converting too many third downs. We're not getting any third downs. So we're going to have a tough time winning this game if this continues. And it continued. And it didn't stop in that way. The Texans for the night, 10 for 15 on third down. If you're 10 for 15 for third down and your quarterback plays that bad, it's almost impossible. It was a bizarre game from Stroud. But make no mistake about it, I thought he was horrendous. I don't think there's any other way to put it. And that will give me some concern about next week for the Houston Texans. But still, you want to talk about living up to the hype. I know they're the Texans. I know it's the AFC South. They don't get a lot of national TV attention, national TV games. So a lot of fans maybe have heard about how good this Texans defense is, but maybe they haven't been locked in. I've been locked in because I didn't want to be embarrassed and have none of my Super Bowl picks make the playoffs. So when I saw the season was teetering for both teams, I kind of locked in on both teams. Be like, come on, guys, one of you guys got to at least make the playoffs. Give me some talking points going into the playoffs for teams that I like coming into the season. And the Texans, after a rough start, were able to turn it around, partly because the defense really took it on themselves, but also the offense found some modicum of success with Davis Mills, and then also when C.J. Stroud came back. I think still, if you're Texans, even though you won last night, I would be concerned that, man, we're going to waste this season. Maybe an all-time defense. I'm not even joking. Maybe an all-time defense because we don't have a quarterback that I think is ready for this moment. But it's gonna be interesting to see. We'll talk more about the divisional round in a second. I do want to first get to what's going on with the Steelers, obviously. So Aaron Rodgers, obviously, they lose this game. Non-committal on his NFL future. And when you listen to the broadcast last night, I was a little surprised at how much they basically were like, our expectation is that he's done. So they obviously have these pre-production meetings, and they have obviously also probably, I assume, meetings that we don't see. Or off the record comments probably that happen, between Aaron and the production team. And Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were very much saying, we don't think it's based on what we're hearing in our conversation with him that he's coming back. That this is indeed the end if they lose this game, which became very clear as the game was winding down and the Steelers were getting pummeled that they were going to lose this game. I want you guys to hear Aaron Rodgers before I talk any more about his future. Here's what Aaron Rodgers had to say about where he's at in terms of making a decision on whether or not he wants to play football next year.
No, I mean, I'm not going to make any emotional decisions. Disappointed, obviously, it's such a fun year. A lot of adversity, but a lot of fun. Been a great year, overall in my life in the last year, and this is, a really good part of that, coming here and being a part of this team. So it's disappointing to be sitting here with the season over.
That's pretty much it, right? I mean, he was asked, further about, what's going to go into the decision. He mentioned, I'll talk to the people I got to talk to, but no word on whether or not this was going to be the end of the road for him. Like I said, though, Troy and Buck made it definitely seem like this is going to be the end. And listen, I've made my bones to pick with Rodgers quite known. When a guy's retiring, I'm not going to make it about me or make it about those beefs that I have with him and how he's carried himself off the field. But what I will say is he can play. He's still got a good arm. He's still he obviously showed in the Ravens game that he could wind back the clock and still shock you and make phenomenal throws. And at the end of the day, he found a way to get the get the Steelers to the playoffs and get them to 10 wins. I know that always seemed to be kind of a lock for Mike Tomlin, but I thought with the way the season was going, it didn't look like it was going to happen at certain points, especially after he broke his wrist and then he got beaten and bloodied by the Steelers. I was not convinced that he was going to be able to get the Steelers to the playoffs. So he showed he definitely can still play. I think that his opportunity to perhaps win a championship, he's not a championship quarterback at this point. And listen, the Steelers aren't necessarily a championship group, as we now see. Like, the coaching, I think, is a little bit of a mess. I think they don't have enough weapons outside DK Metcalf. The offensive line, I think, is also not as good as you would hope. I think the fact that they had to rely so much on Aaron Rodgers in these short throws and not being able to let him get the ball down the field. Some of that, Arthur Smith, and some of that is just like, I don't know if he can protect this guy. So, for him, I think he may be weighing that and saying, like, listen, it was a fun year. I was able to get the stench of what happened with the New York Jets off of me because of how well I played. What am I going to do going into next year saying, hey, let me go see if I can give this one more shot when this is not a championship team? I think he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish, which was to show that he could still play and that it wasn't all his fault for the Jets' struggles, whether we agree or disagree with not. That's what I think he wanted to show. I think people will look at the season and say that was indeed the case. So I don't think he feels like he needs to go out there and play another season. I don't think that's something that is something he necessarily has to do. I don't think that the only reason why I say I was a little surprised was in terms of the conversations about them people assuming that he was going to retire is mid-season. If you guys remember, and we talked about it a bunch on the Maggie and Perloff show, there was all this talk about the Steelers are already gearing up to get Aaron Rodgers back next year. Like, they're so pleased and over the moon about how this was going. This was, I think, when they were like 4-0 or 4-1, whatever that record was. Like, they're already gearing up to get him to return for 2026. And I'm like, man, this is an early season. A lot can happen. Like, the fact that they're getting the cart before the barn, or the horse before the barn, whatever that saying is, that's 2 days in a row. I think I used that saying incorrectly. But the fact that they're going this far ahead in terms of trying to predict the future for Aaron Rodgers, assuming that is something he would want, and B, would be good for the Steelers off of just a quarter of the season, seemed ridiculous to me. And I think it does kind of look ridiculous. Like, I think as decent as he was, we see the limitations and the fact that he's not very mobile. We see the limitations that he's definitely an injury risk. I think if he gets hit, as we saw, he broke his hand earlier this season, and he's playing with that broken wrist. I don't really know if it really makes sense for the Steelers to run this back unless the goal is simply to keep doing this Mike Tomlin thing where you keep just trying to get a winning record and trying to make the playoffs and using that as the quote-unquote standard. As they say in Pittsburgh, the standard is the standard. That is the standard for success, that they just make the playoffs and get eliminated in the first round. If that is what they want to keep continuing to do, I guess maybe bring Aaron Rodgers back. But I think if you're Rodgers, I think you do look at this and say, I might be good, man. Like, I did what I need to do. I proved what I need to prove. I can't win a championship, so I'm not going to improve my legacy in any way playing for this team. I don't think Aaron Rodgers did anything this year that improved his legacy. Maybe did he, stop the bleeding of, what, again, the Jet situation was and get people to kind of forget that, and maybe people think, okay, the end of his career wasn't so embarrassing. Yeah, he did that. But did he improve his status as an all-time great quarterback this year? Absolutely not. That he didn't do that. This was a par score in terms of Aaron Rodgers' time with the Steelers, I believe. And I think he's gonna take that. I think he's. I know, again, I poke at him a lot, but I think he's smart enough to realize that it's nothing for me here. I did what I need to do. It's fun time. Let me go and smoke ayahuasca or come up with some more conspiracy theories and or do a podcast or whatever and have a day. I feel like that's what we'll see probably from Rodgers. I think the fact that he was non-committal was not surprising. He said he didn't want to make an emotional decision. I think that emotional decision probably would mean being like, oh man, we got blown out and that sucked. I don't want to lose like this. But I think he knows, and I've said a bunch, and I kept saying on Maggie and Pearl show that the stories of guys riding off into the sunset in the perfect manner is just, you can almost count them on one hand. Like the Jerome Bettis winning one for the thumb and winning a Super Bowl in his hometown of Detroit in his last game of his career, or Michael Strahan winning a Super Bowl in the last game of his career. Those stories are they're legendary because they don't happen very often. They're so rare. So most guys, the game, you don't retire from the game, retires you. Is that brutal a sport? And again, Aaron Rodgers, I think, saw his mortality watching Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter pounding him into submission for 60 minutes. I'm like, I wouldn't sign up for that again. You did what you had to do. I think he moves on. What I will say on Tomlin, and I want to play this from Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers also, asked about the future of Mike Tomlin and the notion that he is the hot seat, which is what I mentioned yesterday. I kept saying all this talk about, the Steelers, we won division, we got our win over the Ravens, and we did our, loser leaves town match, and Tomlin's here, and there was, Tomlin, that whole spin, kiss to the crowd thing that he did on camera last week after they won. It looks crazy now, considering how their season ended. I know it was emotional. I know you're happy you beat your rival, you made the playoffs. But, it looks crazy knowing that the next week they were going to get destroyed by the Texans 30-6 at home. But here's what Aaron Rodgers said about Mike Tomlin and another coach, when it comes to talk about the hot seat?
The Mike Tomlins of the world, Matt LaFleur's of the world. Those are just two that kind of I've played for. And when I first got in the league, there wouldn't be conversation about whether those guys were on the hot seat. But the way that the league is covered now, and the way that there's snap decisions and the validity given to the Twitter experts and all the experts on TV now who make it seem like they know what the hell they're talking about. To me, that's an absolute joke.
First of all, that's not true. Like what he said, and Aaron Rodgers has this never-ending vendetta on today's media landscape being the problem with everything, and it's to blame for all the issues of the world and his life and the NFL football and for society. So he continues this what I didn't think is a completely nonsense point. Oh, back in my day, we didn't fire coaches hastily. What? This is the NFL. Jerry Glanville said it best. NFL, which stands for not for long. This is the league that created the idea of a hot seat. It created the idea of, if you don't get results immediately, we will fire your ass. Like this is the sport that does that. This is the sport where Tony Dungy took a team out of poverty in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, taking them to the playoffs every year. But because they didn't have playoff success, he got fired. This is a sport where Tom Landry, one of the greatest coaches of all time, wasn't allowed to resign in grace. Fired by Jerry Jones in the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, how many examples do you want me to go through NFL history of guys being canned because they couldn't get the job done? That is the NFL. That is its history. So again, this nonsense about you media folk, these guys, Twitter experts, I think they know what they're talking about. Man, shut up. People have been getting fired since you were born, since I was born. It didn't begin today because of Twitter. I mean, give me a break. That's stuff like that is what just drives me crazy with this dude. But on the point about Tomlin, I said it yesterday. I said they had that win last week, and it was all sunshine and rainbows, but I don't know if he wants to lose this game and see what the reaction is going to be after this game, especially if it doesn't look good. I said it on yesterday's show. And I wondered, would it open the door for Mike Tomlin potentially being out of Pittsburgh if they got embarrassed? The short answer to it is I don't know yet. It just happened, obviously, so we will learn more today, and we could be learning more maybe any minute as people continue to wake up and get to work and the Steelers start their off season. But I know the conversation from the fans is that they were done. I mean, they were booing that team. The score was 7-6, and the game is still in the balance. And Aaron Rodgers throwing 2-yard checkdowns, throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and they are just mercifully booing this team. I was a little surprised by that. I don't think of the Steeler crowd as a Philly crowd. It is a Pennsylvania crowd, but it's not like Philly. It's not like New York. It's not like Chicago, which I think actually was kind of patient during that game against the Packers. Maybe partly because they gotten all those comebacks. Maybe they're like, oh, maybe this is another miracle is going to happen. I kind of was waiting for them to start booing because there was some ugly play for 3 quarters for the Bears. But it was very clear what they were like. They said, we do not want to see this crap again. We better find a way to win this freaking game. And when it started to just look a little bit like it was going sideways, the crowd turned on. The crowd turned on them immediately. You heard the boo birds. I didn't hear any fire Tomlin chants or anything like that. But it was becoming like, oh, okay, this is now, the Steelers are now also kind of facing not just the Texans, but kind of also their own crowd if they don't get this thing together because they're starting to turn. And as soon as that thing started to get out of hand, that place was empty. I've never seen, Central Field, whatever they call it. I mean, the Central Field. I guarantee that's not what it's called. But whatever they call that new place. What I would like to call Heinz Field. I love when the name was Heinz Field. That was an awesome name, especially because they had Heinz Ward back in the day. They should have kept it as Heinz Field. But like that stadium, which I kind of forgot has yellow seats. I usually don't know because people are usually filled in them. They sell out every weekend. It's always a great crowd. It was just yellow seats in the fourth quarter. I was like, oh my God, I've never seen the stadium with this empty. And I know it's kind of a tough loss. It's a Monday night, so people got to get to work, so people were not going to sit there and watch the end of that. But they're I think the fans are definitely done. I think if you're listening to, shout out to the Pony Express, my guy Andrew Filipponi with the Odyssey station in Pittsburgh, if you listen to the local Pittsburgh stations today, I feel like you're probably hearing from sunup to sundown, Mike Tomlin needs to be fired. Will the team listen to that? Will the organization take that in consideration? They have not yet. They've resisted these fire Tomlin movements for the last couple of years. I think I'd say last 2 to 3 years, I feel like it's been probably most loud. They're like, hey, maybe it's time to consider Tomlin. And it's very much a funny thing because for the a lot of the national media and the national conversation about Tomlin and his perception, the respect he garners, it always seems like there's a disconnect. We say, how the hell could you fire Mike Tomlin? You win, you have a winning record every season, you go to the playoffs mostly every season. Okay, you lose in the first round. Why? I don't know why that's happening, but you'll break through at some point. And at the end of the day, if you fire him, who are you going to replace him with? But then again, I did a radio show, Maggie and Proloff, where we're getting calls from people from Pittsburgh, calls from people in Western PA, and again, it's not lip service to him when the saying the standard is the standard gets thrown around in Pittsburgh. It is a reality. The standard is not to go to the playoffs and get blown out. I think I saw this from Filippone. I want to make sure I got this right. Again, shout out to Andrew Filippone. He has an awesome radio show in Pittsburgh. He said this tweet that seemed impossible, but he's Mr. Pittsburgh, so there's no way he's wrong on this. But I want to make sure I get this right. I believe he said something like, in the last 6 playoff games, the Steelers have been down at least 21 points in all of them. That's incredible. Like I don't even know how to put into words how inept that is in terms of just your performance when the chips are down and everybody's paying attention to be that bad. Here's a stat. And let me see if I get this thing to work today. It's always a little bit of a mixed bag. So let's see. Let's share the screen and see how this works here, so you can see what I see here. Here's Phil Pony's tweet. He says, right here, it's official. 7 straight postseason games, the Steelers have trailed by at least 21 points. Fire Tomlin seriously. I mean, and there's obviously an expletive-laden tweet under that, so maybe it is a little bit more. Maybe I should probably not scroll down the replies, but maybe it's a little bit more controversial than maybe a lot of the main local press are making it to be. Though that has 1,000 likes and only 112 replies, so it's definitely not ratioed. 7 straight games being down 21 points is a problem. I'm sorry. I don't care if Aaron Rodgers talk about Twitter experts and people don't know what the hell they're talking about football. Anybody who knows anything about football knows if you play 7 straight games where your team is not competitive in the playoffs, when you come into seasons with championship aspirations, the coach is going to be on the hot seat. The coach is going to ask questions about why the team is performing so poorly in the playoffs. It's just a reality. And so if you're the Steelers, I think if you're Mike Tomlin, I'm going to go with what I've been saying about the situation. I feel like now for 2 years. I don't know why really he wants to be there, and I don't really know why they want to keep him. It feels like this is the perfect scenario for a mutual parting of ways. No one gets fired, no one gets disrespected, and we just move on. We all know Mike Tomlin is a very good coach. I mean, I think if you do listen to the quote unquote as Kirk Herbstreit said about Ohio State fans, but outside the lunatic fringe of Steelers fans who maybe will tell, oh, he's terrible, he's not. I mean, we know he's a good coach. We know he's a good coach. You can't be a bad coach and have 17 straight years where you don't have a losing record and all the success that he's had. We know he's a good coach, but I think with the Steelers situation and what they desperately need, they need a rebuild. It's very obvious. Like you're watching that game and you're playing. I know maybe it kind of looks worse because it's the Texans. It's not like you're playing like one of the flagship organizations like the Patriots. I know they're a young team, but they a lot of winning, or some of these other teams that we usually associate with winning championships. And that's ironically some of the teams the Steelers have played that have bounced them out of the playoffs. Losing to the Ravens, losing to the Chiefs, people like that. Like the fact that you're playing against the Texans and their quarterback, it doesn't have a clue. Literally doesn't have a clue. And you can't be competitive against them. I do think that looks a way where you have to say, like, if this is going to be our future, we're never going to get over the top. Because Mike Tomlin is never going to put us in a position where we can be bad enough that we can tank and draft a quarterback that can change our life, just like Ben Roethlisberger changed our lives, and get us to the next version of the next Steelers dynasty or next Steelers championship run. We're not going to have a pick good enough, but we're also never going to win a Super Bowl. And we're never going to have any legitimate playoff run because also the way he coaches, I don't think is conducive to that. Team is too conservative. They don't make enough big plays. They're trying to win games like it's 2004 and it's 2026. This is not, they can't win. You can't beat great teams in the playoffs playing like that. Some of it may be personnel, some of it may be him. Either way, it's not working. So if I'm the Steelers, I don't know why you want him back. If I'm Mike Tomlin, I don't know why you want to go back. I mean, unless you really love your house in Pittsburgh. I saw, when they beat the Ravens, his kid, posted. I guess it couldn't have been in Pittsburgh because he jumped in a pool. But I think I've seen Tomlin at his crib before. He has a nice house, and I'm sure, and everyone says, people who play for the Steelers, Rodgers just talked about it, that it's an awesome community to live in, awesome community to be a Pittsburgh. To be a Steeler living in Pittsburgh is apparently an awesome experience. So maybe, and he's been a successful coach. I don't know how awesome it's been right now where people want his head so much, but maybe he just loves that so much that he can't imagine the grass being greener anywhere else. But I do feel like you're so stuck in this mediocrity phase, and you are in a position where people are they're not appreciating you what you're bringing to the table anymore. Like, maybe the team does, but not the community, not the fans, not the local media. They're going to be calling for your firing for the next 5 months, 6 months, whenever the NFL season revs back up again. And you got to go to training camp in 6-7 months, I guess. They're going to be calling for you to be fired for that entire time. They're going to say, why the hell is he back? And you're going to go through next year. You're going to have the same kind of season. You're going to start off hot. You're going to have a midseason low. And you may make the playoffs. You may miss the playoffs, but you'll finish with a winning record. And if you make the playoffs, you'll lose in the first round. It's going to be the same thing over and over again. And I can't imagine Mike Tomlin, who I think is a true blue competitor. I don't think he takes this going losing, sitting down. I don't think he likes getting embarrassed like that in the playoffs 7 straight years. I think at a certain point you may say, you know what, maybe it's time for me to split. Maybe it's time for me to find another organization that I could have my imprint on, have my impact, and people will actually respect what I bring to the table, respect what I'm doing, appreciate that I can bring a winning culture to a squad. Because there are a lot of teams that need it. Cardinals need a winning culture. Dolphins need a winning culture. Giants need a winning culture. There's plenty of teams where if Mike Tomlin was the coaching candidate and the hire, I think all of us would be doing an absolute standing ovation. We'd be doing a round of applause. If any of those teams got Mike Tomlin, are you kidding me? Giants, Cardinals, Raiders. He's not going to the Browns because he's not going to have a divisional trade. But like those organizations do backflips to get someone like Mike Tomlin. And I think while we say, okay, why the hell he wouldn't go there? I think he's a good enough coach where I think if he goes anywhere, I think he'll be fine. I don't think that he's going to go somewhere and it's going to be like Pete Carroll with the Raiders this year where it's going to be such a disaster and they don't know what the hell's going on. They lose 14, 15. I don't think that's going to happen if he goes to another team. I think he's going to go somewhere. He'll start to turn them around pretty quickly. They'll have success. Will they win a Super Bowl or anything like that? Tell me if they get a quarterback. If they don't, then no. If they do, then maybe. I think a lot of this has come down to the fact that they haven't had good enough quarterback play, good enough offense play overall in order to win. And I think it makes the Steeler conversation for their future quite interesting because I can't tell you for certain where I think they should turn in terms of the quarterback in the future. Which also is why I think Mike Tomlin, I don't know why you want him back. Because Aaron Rodgers is committed to retiring potentially. What's going to happen with the Steelers in terms of their offseason and the quarterback situation? I mean, I'm all ears. I'm all ears for answers on what you do. I legitimately have no idea what they would do in that positioning. They're, again, very, very low into the draft. So it's not like drafting a first-round quarterback is really going to, I think, do wonders for them, I don't think. I guess Ty Simpson, is he going to be their guy? They tried the thing with Kenny Pickett. That didn't work. Are you keeping him around so he can, develop Ty Simpson? Or if Trinidad Chambers finally stops being scared and goes to the NFL, you get Trinidad Chambers, okay, we're gonna ride with him. To me, I was thinking about it last night, like who could be the Steelers quarterback next year if not Rodgers. Something tells me Malik Willis, he just screams Pittsburgh Steelers to me. He's gonna be available this year. I believe he's a free agent. Something tells me he seems like the perfect guy. The Steelers love to kind of get these like retread kind of like under the radar guys who maybe didn't get appreciated in their first stop, but have certainly can win football games. They kind of like they like a what was the word Aaron Rodgers used? A cast off. And then they asked him, "Are you a cast off?" He said no. But which is as almost funny. His lack of self awareness is it does become funny at a certain point. But no, like they like a cast off, especially at quarterback. So I actually think that may also be the move for them. Is someone like a Malik Willis. And okay, Malik Willis I think would probably do what they did this year. I think Malik Willis, if he's their quarterback next year, which I would, if I had to bet who would be the quarterback if it's not Rodgers, I would bet it would be Malik Willis. I think they win 10 games. I think they made the playoffs. And I think they lose in the first round. I think it's the same story. It's nothing against Malik Willis at all. He's the backup quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, who in relief the last 2 years has played extremely well. For a guy who was just, again, casted off in Tennessee. In Green Bay, he's looked like an entirely different guy. I think whoever gets him, I think is going to get a steal. I think he can play. But again, are you winning a Super Bowl? Like, I can't really see that. Because again, with the Steelers, it's not just the quarterback. Their defense also is a problem. Like again, they could not stop the run last night. They're old in a lot of key spots. Cam Hayward's still playing all pro level football. I don't know how, because the guy is he's like 80. he's like 85 years old. And he's still playing all pro football. But every time I watch him, he also is leaving the game with some kind of injury. Because he's old, man. Like he shouldn't be doing this. He shouldn't be doing this stuff anymore. Cam Hayward's still a great player, but how long are you going to be doing this Cam Hayward thing? You know, TJ Watt now is I believe north of 30. They just gave him this massive extension. They got Jalen Ramsey running around out there. Like, they're young in some spots. Harmon made some plays last night. He looked good. Joey Porter, I thought, had a really good game. But in a lot of other spots, they're old in crucial spots where they need guys to play well. And I don't see the next iteration of this great Steeler defense coming around. So not only do you have an offensive problem, I think you also low-key have a defensive problem. 2 years in a row in the playoffs, you got steamrolled on the ground. Oh yeah, what are we doing here, Pittsburgh? Really going to do this thing all over again? At a certain point, I think you got to just give it up. But Steelers go home. Texans win. So they advance. Let's talk about this next round of matchups. Again, I had the matchups up there early, a little earlier than expected, but let's go to these matchups. So you got 4:30. I believe this is a CBS game. I kind of forgot, and this thing is too small for me to see up close. But you're going to have Broncos, Bills. That'll be your first kickoff on Saturday afternoon. Interestingly enough, for the Broncos, the Bills, and then the Niners, who will play the Seahawks later in the day, that's going to be a short week for them. I guess the NFL, and I saw someone saying that, I forgot who it was, but it was a coach or a media head. Somebody was talking about how they feel like the NFL divisional round and how they schedule it is unfair, and I agree. I mean, the Bills played a hellacious game on Sunday. They got to go a short week and play the Broncos, and the Eagles. I mean, the Niners again, with all the injuries that they've dealt with and the war of attrition that they've had to battle, they got to go now short week and play against the Seahawks. Doesn't seem all that fair to me, but that is what's going to happen next week. So you got, I believe CBS. You got Broncos hosting the Bills. You'll have on Fox, Seahawks hosting the Niners in a rematch of the game we just saw a couple weeks ago, where the Seahawks were able to clinch the division by beating up on the 49ers. And then Sunday, you have the ESPN 3 o'clock start. You'll have Texans, who we just talked about earlier, going to Patriots. We'll have Bears going to Rams. Later in the week, I'll give official picks, just quick thoughts, quick overview, quick picks, though these could change. I've not been a believer in the Broncos. And maybe some of it is because Sean Payton annoys me. But some of it also is they also, I am not someone who believes that you can play, again, like this, like, uneven football and not really learn from your mistakes and then win championships. I just don't see that happen very often. So I think so many of the uneven performances we've seen from them has made it hard for me to really be a believer in the Broncos. And I don't know what Josh Allen's health is going to be, because he took an absolute beating in that game against Jacksonville, and he already came in beat up. But I think if there was anybody I feel confident about going into Denver to get a win that's left in this field, it would probably be Josh Allen. So I think the Bills, you got to feel pretty good about that. No Gabe Davis, though. He is out for the year. with an ACL injury. So that's a tough blow. At a certain point with the Niners, at a certain point, the jig has to be up, right? Like, how long can you do this thing where you continue to survive these terrible injuries and continue to make deep runs into this postseason? I think this is probably where the road's going to end for them, given the injury history. But then it's Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold is not performed well in big games for the most part. For most of his career, he's not performed well. Obviously, in the one playoff game we saw last year. So that'll be a fun one. Texans, Patriots, that one maybe feels like a 1st to 16 kind of game wins, 1st to 17 game kind of wins. I don't think that's going to be high scoring. And then, they picked the right Sunday night game. I tell you what, you can say what you want about, these games and again, the short weeks I thought were unfair, but Bears and Rams is going to be a doozy. I cannot wait. Again, this is one of those styles make fights. The Rams, awesome team, awesome offense. Bears, not awesome per se, but play great in fourth quarters. They're playing a Rams team who knows how to give it up in the fourth quarter. So I think you could end up seeing kind of what you would expect. Rams get out to an early lead. Bears have to climb back, and they'll have an opportunity to win maybe the last drive, and I think it's going to be fun. So this is going to be a fun divisional weekend. I can't wait to break that down. It should be a lot of good stuff. Again, this is day 2 of this project. We're on the what we're calling 40 Days and 40 Nights, hosted by your boy EJ Stewart. This is here on New Generation Media. This is where you can watch on our YouTube channel. New Generation Media is where you'll watch. Make sure if you are watching, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. There's a comment section in there, so if you want to comment on what's happening on the show, the conversation we're happening, give a comment. I do read comments on the air, so make sure you engage with the show in that way. Again, we're streaming live, YouTube. New Generation Media is where you can subscribe to the channel. Also, be sure to hit us up also where we're streaming elsewhere. We're streaming live on Instagram Live. That's the first time because we didn't do it. We weren't able to do it last week, which was super annoying. But we are doing it this week, which is really exciting. Not last week, yesterday. I thought I had it on, but I guess I didn't have it on. I now can see, I'm looking at the screen right now, that I do have Instagram Live rolling. We have some comments for Instagram Live, so that's really exciting. So if you want to check us out on IG Live, go to my account, Action EJ is where I'm streaming live these 40 Days, 40 Nights shows. Also, check us out on X as well. X, if you go to my X account, EJ_Stewart, that's where you'll find the show streaming there as well. Make sure you give me a follow on both Instagram, Action EJ, and on X, EJ_Stewart. And like I said, make sure you subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media on YouTube. Last little bit of note as well before we continue. Like I've said every show, all these episodes getting podcasted. So if you missed last night's night 1 of 40 Days and 40 Nights, that episode is up on the podcast channel. So if you go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, whatever you get your podcast, real simple. Search New Generation Podcast Network, and you'll see our logo come up, and that's where you'll find the 40 Days and 40 Night episodes posted. That's where we post all of our shows for New Generation Media, so it's not just 40 Days and 40 Nights. You also catch Hero Talk, which is our Marvel DC podcast that we talk about, me hosting with my brothers Shamari and Kendall. We host that every week or so. That gets up there. Sports Talk, which we haven't done in a little while, but Sports Talk, also our podcast that I do with Kendall, that's up there. Imperial Broadcast, my brothers, they just did a year-end recap of everything Star Wars. That is our Star Wars podcast. That is up there as well. And then Off Script, which is a wrestling podcast hosted by myself and former WWE writer Lucas Goldman, talking about everything wrestling, also on there. So we do, I think, really awesome, amazing content. I'm really proud of the library of shows and content that we've produced for New Generation Media and New Generation Podcast Network. All that can be found if you go to any of your podcast audio streaming services, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, wherever you do, and just search New Generation Podcast Network. I mentioned before, I kind of didn't know if I wanted to continue this part of the story for this show because I've grown already. I've already grown pretty tired, quite frankly, of all the conversation about it. But I did want to mention what's been talked about a bunch, which is this Lynn Jones situation. So for those who may not be familiar with any of this, if you're not on social media, you're probably not, because this feels like a social media story, but everyone and their mama is weighing in on this Lynn Jones situation. So Lynn Jones, she's a local reporter for a black newspaper in Jacksonville. Obviously, the Jaguars were playing in a playoff game against the Buffalo Bills. She was there to cover the game. She was at the press conference. And Jaguars obviously lose. And this exchange between Lynn Jones and Liam Cohen has sparked a ton of conversation. I want you to... Oh, sorry, I said Lynn Jones, and I apologize for this. And I'm going to fix this right immediately because I messed up that name. I don't like that. Lynn Smith is her name, so apologies for that. Lynn Smith, I believe, is her name, so I'll double-check that. But Lynn Smith is the woman. She's a veteran for a local. Let me make sure I double check this one more time. I want to make sure I get this right. Lynn Smith, Jacksonville. Oh, or is it Lynn Jones? No, I think I was right. It was Lynn Smith. Lynn Jones. I'm sorry. I had it right the first time. My other thing said Lynn Smith. So no, it was Lynn Jones. So apologies for that. Let's get that right back there. Lynn Jones is the reporter, and she had this exchange with Liam Cohen. I want you to listen to it.
I want to tell you congratulations on your success, young man.
Thank
you.
you.
Hold your head up, all right? You guys have had a most magnificent season.
Thank
and
you.
you did a great job out there today.
Appreciate
so you
it.
just hold your head up, okay?
Thank
and
you,
ladies
ma'am.
and gentlemen, Duval, you the one, all
Thank
right?
you, ma'am.
keep it going. We got another season, okay?
I appreciate
Take
it.
care and much continued success to you and the entire team.
Thank you, ma'am.
Not what you normally hear from a press conference. I mean, that's very obvious, right? If you've watched any sports press conferences, win, lose, or draw, you don't really hear words of affirmation, words of encouragement from a reporter. Really not much of a question there from Lynn Jones, more of just a statement. And this got a lot of pushback. I think it started particularly with an AP news reporter who was like, you're either a reporter or a fan, choose one, you can't do both. In all this conversation, there was a lot of talk online about, oh, this isn't journalism ethics, and this, you can't go there and be a fan when you're at this opportunity. A lot of people talking about how the press conferences are for reporters that are on deadline trying to get quotes for their story, and here we are wasting time with someone giving praise to the coach when that's not part of the job. And again, this became just an absolute firestorm of conversation. Pat McAfee weighing in, talking about basically death to journalism and death to you losers who think that this is a big deal and this is why you guys suck. And a message that I thought was really over the top and uncalled for in many ways. Other folks talking about how, this is sports, people need to lighten up. And I do want to give Lynn Jones the final word, because she got to respond to some of the criticism that she saw and seen, and particularly from the AP writer who said that you either got to be a fan or be a reporter. You can't be both.
I don't take no offense to it. Listen, I've been in this business more than 25 years. I've interviewed from Barack Obama to Terry Bradshaw to, what's my guy named Tiger Woods. So he can say whatever he wants about fake news. I am a member of the Black Press, NNPA, the National Newspaper Association, that's been around more than 100 years. I'm the associate editor of the Jacksonville Free Press, one of the more than 230 African-American newspapers still printing in this country today. In Jacksonville, you have the Florida Star since 1955. We've been around since 1986. In Philadelphia, the Philly Tribune has been printing since 1884. In my hometown of Detroit, the Michigan Chronicle has been printing since 1935. So support the Black Press. So you can call me fake all you want to, honey. I've been doing this a long time.
Let me tell you something.
Kind of a mic drop from Lynn Jones. I'm not gonna lie. Listen, here's what I'll say about it. I feel like, number one, I'll say just to all the people that get on their high horse on either side, I don't care about your opinion about this. I think it's quite clear the world that we're in and the times that we're in, that there are extremely way more serious things than what a reporter is asking Liam Cohen, or her encouraging Liam Cohen in a press conference. The fact that, and I understand if you're part of this industry, part of this business, and things have been going a certain way, and you see someone do this, that's kind of like a no-no, so to speak, in terms of journalism talk. I understand saying, hey, this isn't all that appropriate. I think it's to the point where it's like, oh, you're a fan, you're whatever. I'm just tired of the hyperbolic nature of commentary on everything, bro. Like, not everything is a think piece. Not everything is a referendum on journalism or a referendum on society, especially when we're talking about freaking sports and a sports press conference. Like, I think I understood the reporters who said, hey, this is really not that appropriate. This is not the time for that. There are no official rules for what can be said or said. But okay, fine. I get that. I understand that. I don't necessarily even disagree. Do I think it, again, needed all of the reporters coming in from left and right being like, take her credential away, she deserves to be there? I'm like, God, it's a football game. It's a football game, guys. Like, we can relax a little bit. Make a comment saying, oh, that's a little odd, and then we just move on. And then on the other side again, and I kind of weighed back and forth. I don't want to destroy Pat McAfee. I have no beef with him at all. But Pat McAfee doing this, like, this is why journalists, deaf to all journalists, essentially. He's like, this is why my success is this and that, and this is why people need to understand these people need to be out of jobs because they don't understand that people want to have fun and unify around sport. I'm like, can we just take it down a notch? Are we really at the point now because you disagree with someone's opinion about an exchange at a press conference that you want all journalists to not have jobs? Like, what are we doing? Like, at a certain point, I think we all got to look in the mirror and be like, are we helping the discourse for anything that's happening around this country? Are we taking things a little too seriously for things that are not that serious when there's other more serious things happening? Am I helping the cause? Like, I think about this all the time when there's plenty of things that be happening in the world, in sports, and all things that are going on. And there are times where I will say whatever, whether it's serious or not serious. I feel like it's important. I want to get this out because this is how I feel. I think it's important I say this. But there are a lot of times where there's stuff happening, and because of the nature of social media, like, the instinct is always to just commentate on everything. But I think one of the things I'm proud of myself is I think I've gained that self-control where I can say, what am I adding to this conversation? Like, does anyone need to hear my take on Lynn Jones and this, whether this is some atrocity or whether this is old school media being on their high horse and why we need to be over and done with conventional reporting? Do you need my voice on that? Do you need real commentary on that? Is that something that we really need to be talking about right now in a major way? And also, like, I'm sorry, like, your take is not going to be all that much different than someone else. That's another thing I say to myself, too. I'm like, someone's going to be saying the same thing I'm saying. So, what thing am I adding to this by dropping in a take when, again, there's so many people that, like, it becomes like an avalanche, and they affect people. Like, shout out to Lynn Jones. She seems like an absolute boss. I don't think anything bothers that woman. I think she seems tough as nails. She seems like a cool woman. Much respect to her. But what I think we lose sight of when we have these conversations is, and a lot of people who have been quote unquote canceled or whatever. And let me be clear. I am not a cancel culture guy. I'm not that. So don't put that on me. But I think what we have seen is from people who have been in the fire of being talked about a bunch of social media is the idea of a quote-unquote mob, and it feels like everyone's on top of you. And I think that's the one thing I would just say about this is real people involved. There's real people who have to hear and see everything that you're saying. Their family members involved that then hear and see. Maybe it's Lynn's not issue. Maybe her daughter, her son, or husband, or whatever. Like, they got to now deal with this person being talked about nonstop with all these bombastic opinions, nothing with any nuance. There's no nuance to the conversations at all. Ask yourself, are you adding anything positive to this? Is there anything that you're going to say to this that's going to think me, you know what? I didn't think about that. That's a good point. And that's going to move us in a positive direction. I just don't see that happening with this at all. I did not see it with the Pat McAfee side, and I'm naming him, but he wasn't alone. There were a bunch of people saying kind of the same stuff about, you journalists, and this is why you guys suck. And I'm like, oh, come on, relax. It's not that serious for people in a profession to think that something was out of line, and it doesn't mean that people, a profession, got to go to die, or that it's a reason why it's a problem with America. Like, I mean, come on, give me a break. And then again, the same thing with the people who are like so going crazy about ban her from the facility and something. Again, like, oh, really? This is what you're adding to the lexicon? This is what you're adding to the conversation? For what? It's not that big a deal, bro. Relax. So, I mean, again, shout out to Lynn Jones. I mean, she went up there. She didn't care what anybody thought. She said what she had to say. She felt like she said that she saw Liam Cohen and she saw how, I didn't see him crying or anything. She said, I felt like I saw tears welling up and I felt like he was really down about the loss, which is understandable. They lost a heartbreaker in the playoffs in a wide open AFC where I think he probably felt like his team had a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So I can understand why he was down. She felt like that time he needed words of encouragement, and that's that. Another like side note that I thought people made that was I thought also important too, is she is not a member of the Athletic. She is not a member of ESPN. She is not a member of Sports Illustrated or one of these sports forward like game analysis breakdown platforms where there is no rooting interest, there is no whatever. She is part of local reporting, which by the way is something that is dying. Like I love that she mentioned how we need to support black-owned newspapers because there are not many of them left anymore, and local reporting as a whole is dying in a major way, and it is a problem because if you want to know what's happening in your backyard, you absolutely need local journalism. And that's why I thought Pat McAfee's message was so counterproductive, because he's saying death to all journalists essentially, but also like praising this woman. I'm like, well, if you don't want journalists around, then that means you don't want her around. So what this is not someone from Barstool. This is not someone from Blog Jacksonville Jaguars SB Nation. And again, not to this SB Nation. I love SB Nation at all. I was mentioned just to say like this is not someone who's like, oh, I'm a fan account. She was not the Pat McAfee side. She was not the Athletic side. She was on a whole different lane, which means how they're covering the Jacksonville Jaguars and their playoff performance is going to be a lot different. It's a lot different. It's more about the community impact. It's more about what it means to people around the city. It's not about necessarily what call Liam Cohen made on third down that could have decided the game. That's not how it's being covered. So again, this hyperbolic nature, I think people don't even understand the basics of what was even happening there. But everyone's got to run up there and say, oh, this get these guys out of here. Oh, blah blah blah. I just think it's whack, man. I think it's totally weak. So I know I said it. I didn't want to talk about it, and I really didn't because I just feel like it's been such a toxic commentary for something that was should have been not that big a deal, and in theory could have been an interesting conversation. Could have been like an engaging, thoughtful conversation, but then it's just throw insults at people, fire people, say a whole profession should go away, even though you're a millionaire and the people who work in this profession make $50,000, $60,000. Like, again, some of the stuff, I'm like, what are we doing here? Again, I know being the most bombastic gets you the most attention today, and that's why people do it. But I just feel like, again, the whole moving for clout stuff, I don't associate with it at all. It's something I cannot relate to on any way. That's what I got to say on that. I promise we're going to do it, so we're going to do it now. We got to talk about some Marvel stuff. Lighten up the mood. Lighten up the rest of the show for the rest of the day. Get you guys going on a high note as we leave day 2 of this edition of 40 Days and 40 Nights. And I want to talk about the rumors regarding Black Panther. So multiple rumors out there. Nothing official, nothing from a major trade that I've seen. But it's now becoming where there's smoke, where there's fire when it comes to Damson Idris. And what it appears to be his imminent role of playing Black Panther in some upcoming Marvel movies. I've seen everything from him having a role in Avengers Doomsday. Also rumors of him having Avengers Doomsday, of course, comes out later this year in December. That is the mega Marvel movie. This is the biggest movie they're going to make since they did Endgame. This is kind of like a 2-part deal directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, where they're going to do similar to what they did with Endgame and Infinity War. They're going to do this first one, Avengers Doomsday, with Robert Downey Jr. starring as Dr. Doom, which is a whole interesting conversation that I'm sure we could have if you want to have it. And then they'll also have Secret Wars the following year. So just like they did with Infinity War and Doomsday. And Damson Idris, it sounds like he's going to be the Black Panther. Now, he was asked about it because he had the Golden Globes this week. And I want you guys to hear Damson Idris' answer when he was asked about what it means to be connected to the Black Panther role.
I'm thankful to the fans, you know. Of course, it's rumors, but I love the movie. I love that world. And I'm glad that everyone's seeing the future of that too, because it's moving in a brilliant direction. And I'm excited for the third one.
Yes. I was like, Ryan will be here later. Do you have any ideas to pitch him, even if you're not in it?
Just make sure it's amazing, but I know he'll do that.
So he kind of laughed at us saying, oh, well, I know it's just rumors, but they're doing great work over there, and I'm excited for what they're doing. I'm like, I think the veil is really starting to come off that, and there's been plenty of smoke that this was the move they're going to make. The big question is going to become, is this a recasting, which is something that was said that Marvel was never going to do when Chadwick Boseman passed away due to colon cancer. President Kevin Feige had said that they were not going to recast that character, that character will remain, dead and off screen for the duration of Marvel Studios. And that came with a lot of controversy and continues to be a controversial topic. There are some who feel like that back then that they should have recasted that character of T'Challa. There are a lot of folks who feel like maybe they felt like it was appropriate not to recast him then, but now I feel like it's appropriate to recast him now. And then there are some folks who feel like they should have never recasted it. So there's been a mixed bag when it comes to how people have felt about that Black Panther role. Letitia Wright, who plays Shuri, T'Challa's sister, she was the Black Panther in the last Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever, because the Black Panther is a role that is a mantle. It's not like it's some one person. It's not like Superman where only Kal-El can be Superman. Black Panther is a role that can be given to multiple people. So Shuri was the one who was Black Panther in the last movie. T'Challa is the primary Black Panther. He's been the Black Panther in most comics, most American media. So the question becomes, damn to Idris, is he playing T'Challa? Is he playing the character that we said was never going to be recast? Or is he going to be playing a variant of T'Challa where maybe it is the T'Challa that we know, son of T'Chaka, but is it going to be from a different universe? Or then the third thing is it going to be T'Challa Jr., the character Toussaint that was introduced at the end of Wakanda Forever when it was revealed that T'Challa and Nakia had a son and he was living in Haiti and his nickname was Toussaint, but his real name obviously was T'Challa, son of T'Challa. So he was essentially T'Challa Jr. And there's no answer to that. We don't know what the answer is. My guess is I think that they're going to stand pat and make this character T'Challa Jr. And that's going to upset some people, or maybe even a lot of people, because a lot of people want to see the T'Challa character that was previously brought back or introduced by Chadwick Boseman. They want to see that character brought back. I think for a lot of this, I think Kevin Feige is going to really, I think he's really going to be hands off and kind of see what Ryan Coogler wants to do. And Ryan Coogler, after everything that happened with with Chadwick Boseman, he wrote this story to have this character, this young Toussaint, as a part of the story. Could he change his mind and say, you know what, I've heard the concerns, I've heard the people complaining, I'm going to now change my mind and say I'm going to make a new T'Challa that is either, again, the old character or a new, different T'Challa? He could, but I get the impression that Coogler is going to want to tell the story he wants to tell, wherever that's going to be. Black Panther reports are that it could be filming later this year. So my guess is they will do the T'Challa Jr. thing. But I think anything's on the table. Because I do think that the audience and the groundswell for people who want to see an original T'Challa that's not the son of a T'Challa be the Black Panther is loud, and they've been active. So it's not like you can avoid it. You can't avoid that conversation if you're Marvel, if you're Ryan Coogler. And they are the backbone of the Black Panther fandom, the Black Panther franchise. Do I think they won't show up if it's Toussaint? No, I don't think that's ridiculous. But do I think that they will be loud and be annoyed, and they will definitely maybe not give you the wind behind your sails in terms of promotion for this movie because they're not happy with the direction of the character? Yeah, that does depress possible box office, because if you got, it's what I mentioned before, how stupid this whole plan was to do these Avengers Doomsday trailers in the movie theaters and not just drop them online. Now they've been getting leaked, so then Marvel that they didn't drop them online anyway. Like, I think to alienate the backbone of any fan base is usually not a good idea. Can you get away with it? Yeah, you can, but I think those are folks you typically are going to need to get word of mouth out there, to get the promotional stuff out there. And if they're wasting their time